Welcome to Driving.ca. My name is Jay Canna, and I'm here with the 2024 Honda Accord Hybrid, specifically the Sport trim, which is the base trim. And yes, sedans are dwindling, and electrification, whether it be through a hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or fully electric, is constantly on the rise. Honda still has a pretty good product here to offer. In this video, we're going to do two things. One, we're going to look at the true value that the base Sport trim has to offer compared to the top trim Touring here with the Accord Hybrid. And secondly, we're going to look at the competition and see what the Accord Hybrid is up against and how it fares. With only two trims for the 2024 Honda Accord Hybrid, there's a lot of similarities, and the base Sport trim does come pretty well equipped. Mechanically, the Sport and the Touring trims run off the same 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It's 204 horsepower, 247 pound-feet of torque through an ECVT, and unfortunately for now, it's front-wheel drive only. I think that'll change in the coming years, but more on that later on. Now, as far as standard features go, it's pretty well equipped on the Sport trim. You get a standard sunroof, standard heated steering wheel, standard 3-stage heated seats for the driver and front passenger. You get a digital instrument cluster, and you also get a fairly decently sized infotainment system. And yes, it has a volume knob, but there are no hard touch tactile buttons. Everything is on the screen. The list of standard safety is pretty long, so thank you Honda for not penalizing those who want the Sport trim. Highlights include blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist, traffic jam assist, you have your automatic high beams, you have your adaptive cruise control and road departure mitigation, along with a few others. So pretty similarly matched there as well. Now, when you go to the rear seats, that's where things get a little different as far as what Honda offers. On the Sport trim, there are no vents, there are no USB ports, and there are no outboard heated seats. You've got to go up to the Touring trim to get those three items, and if you are one of those people that do carry a lot of rear passengers, it might be worth it to take a second or maybe even third look at the Touring trim. On the Sport trim, you get your fabric seats, and if you want leather seats, you've got to go up to the Touring trim. But I've done a few hundred kilometers here in the Sport trim, and there's no driver fatigue. The seats are plenty comfortable, and more importantly, they're heated seats. So in Canadian winters, when things get a little extra cold, those 3-stage heated seats definitely help. And it's standard variant on the Sport trim. So if you really want leather, you can go up to the Touring trim, but from somebody who's done a few hundred kilometers, in the Sport trim, these cloth seats are very comfortable. Back to the tech side for a moment, both trims do get wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. You can also get them wired if you so choose. One of the advantages of going with the Sport trim is if you're into wireless charging, it has it here. And you also get ventilated seats, and I think that's more of a novelty. I don't really know if a lot of people will use the ventilated seats, but it's there in the Sport trim if you really want it. On the top trim Touring, you also get a head-up display, you get an auto-dimming rear view mirror, and you get acoustic glass. These are nice to haves. I think that the Accord Sport for the hybrid does very, very well as far as what it comes with out of the box. Yes, some people may want the nicer bells and whistles, but as a function-first vehicle, the Sport trim does very, very well. Having driven the Sport and Touring trims, they're very similar in driving dynamics and feel. The only real difference here is that the Sport trim is 24 kilograms lighter because you get a few extra bells and whistles with the Touring trim, but at 24 kilograms, the drive is still smooth, it's relatively quiet, even without that acoustic glass that the top trim Touring has. But as a hybrid sedan and as something that's lower to the ground, you have that nice planted feeling. And again, it's a smooth ride, there's plenty of acceleration. Yeah, the ECVT whines a little bit more than a traditional geared vehicle, but if you are looking at the Accord Hybrid, your only option is an ECVT. Sure, a geared transmission would have been nicer, but there's a reason that it's here, and it helps with fuel consumption. And that is actually a great way to go into the fuel consumption side of things here. On the fuel consumption side, both the Sport and Touring get the exact same fuel consumption numbers, despite the Touring being 24 kilograms heavier. And those numbers are 5 liters per 100 kilometers on city streets, 5.7 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway for a blended total of 5.3. And all of that runs off a 48.5 liter fuel tank on regular fuel. So what does that mean for everyday driving? Well, that means you got a little over 900 kilometers as per the Natural Resources Canada rating. So we've gone through the key differences between the sport and touring trims. Now let's talk about money. There's only a $3,500 MSRP price difference between the sport and the touring. And for the 2024 model, as of early 2024, it's $41,500 for an MSRP on the sport and an MSRP of $45,000 for the top trim touring. I think $3,500 is a little much to ask for leather seats, ventilated seats, USB ports in the rear, outboard heated rear seats, and rear seat vents, along with a few other things. I don't see it. If it was maybe $1,500 or $2,000, then it'd be a little closer of an argument for me to jump up to the touring trim. But the way it's spec'd, the way it's priced, I think that the sport trim would be the one that most people should be leaning towards. On the competition side for hybrid sedans, there is just one, and that is the Toyota Camry. And if you're like, wait a second, Jay, the Hyundai Sonata has a hybrid. They did for 2023, but they do not for 2024. And yes, it was initially announced in the summer of 2023 that there would be a hybrid Sonata for 2024. I've spoken directly with Hyundai Canada, and they have confirmed that there are no plans to have a 2024 Sonata hybrid. So that leaves us with the Camry hybrid. And a couple of interesting points here. There's a little more power on the 2024 Toyota Camry, which comes in at 208 horsepower as opposed to the 204 that we have here. And the pricing is the big difference. The top trim Camry hybrid comes in at $41,490. This sport trim for the Accord hybrid is $41,500. So the top trim Camry is $10 cheaper than the base model Accord. And Honda's seen some price fluctuations over the past couple of years. And I think if they could have brought the price down, they absolutely would have. But price is one thing, unfortunately, going against the Honda brand, whether it's the Civic, whether it's the CR-V, or anything else in their lineup. Putting it against the Camry, which is their only direct competitor, doesn't really put them in the brightest of lights. Now, if you do want a Camry hybrid and you're okay with going for the base LE trim, that MSRP is $32,690, which is way cheaper by almost $10,000 than what we have here with the Sport. Now, interestingly, the 2025 Camry will only be hybrid, and it offers all-wheel drive as an option. And unfortunately for now, Honda only offers this in front-wheel drive. I feel there might be a mid-cycle refresh, let's say maybe 2025, 2026, where Honda realizes that if they want to stay competitive in the hybrid sedan market, that they will put all-wheel drive here in the Honda Accord. Now, I know they're coming out with a Civic hybrid, and that the CR-V hybrid popped out last year, only in the top trim touring, and now there is a second trim for it. So we know they have the technology and the capability to do it. It's just a matter of, hopefully for everybody's sake, when they decide to put all-wheel drive in the Accord hybrid. So where does that leave us with the 2024 Honda Accord Hybrid Sport trim? In the Honda lineup, it's very competitive. There is plenty of value here. I would urge you to take both for a test drive and really figure out if you need to have those extra niceties that come with the touring trim for the extra $3,500 as an MSRP. There is so much value here in the sport trim, and I would opt for this personally over the touring trim. The future of the hybrid sedan market is daunting, to say the least, with only Honda and Toyota carrying the torch. I don't know of any other manufacturers that are planning to put hybrid powertrains in their sedans. Mazda 6 doesn't exist anymore. I don't think the Subaru Legacy is going to be here for very much longer. Same thing with the Kia K5. Nissan's a little slow as far as electrifying anything. The big draw for them is all of their Altimas come with standard all-wheel drive, but it's got to be more than that. It's got to be electrified. We're already in 2024, and almost all the brands have something electrified, and that needs to trickle down. But until we get there, it's only Honda and Toyota. If you're looking between the two, Toyota does have more options. It's lower priced. The drives are similar between the Camry Hybrid and the Accord Hybrid. But looping back to wrap things up here with the Accord Hybrid, if your needs are a sedan and you like the Honda brand, I definitely suggest taking the Accord Sport trim out for a few test drives. And again, really dig into what you need out of a vehicle versus what you want. And keep in mind that the prices are a little higher compared to the only competitor being the Toyota Camry Hybrid. For Driving.ca, I'm Jay Canna. For more news, reviews, and information you can use on hybrid vehicles, as well as sedans and other vehicles, visit our website at Driving.ca, and we invite you to connect with us on our social media platforms.